This is the dream. You got your mug. We don't do morning recordings as much anymore. And yet here we are.
Cheers, Brakken. I got coffee. You got fight milk.
Yep. Got some crow's milk
Can
today.
you hear this?
Oh, yeah.
That was a good coffee sip.
You haven't
right
heard
there.
a good swallow from me in a while because I don't eat burgers right as we start up recording anymore.
You've really matured as a host. My coffee is so dark. You know, I like it like sort of almost thick. Like it comes out like sludge.
Yeah.
Yeah, like often I had a friend come and bring his fiance over, and we made coffee in the morning like we normally do. And she had her normal cup of coffee, but she puts creamer in it, I guess, and stuff. And she was sitting on the couch, like uncomfortable. She's like, I'm about to have a panic attack. I feel so caffeinated. She's like, I've overdone it. Like she had to move because apparently not everybody brews it this way. And she probably had like twice her daily dose. And she's like, she looked at her hands and they were just like quivering. Like,
Time
I'm so
for a
sorry.
quality session.
Should have given you a heads up. She was a runner. So, what are you up to this morning? You got the dreary doom and gloom like we have here, huh?
Yep. Weather's been weird. It's raining. But on the plus side for me, downside for Braden, this is happening everywhere. So we canceled today our trip down to North Carolina for karting. So today and tomorrow are still busy for me, but now Thursday and Friday opened up a little bit, as well as Saturday, Sunday, Monday.
Well, the listeners should thank, I guess, the weather gods then, because you guys would have been stuck with just me later this week, and now you're going to get both of us still. So
Some people, it'll make them happy. Some people, it'll make them sad.
dodged a bullet. I had my PT, guy that I've been working on rehabbing my Achilles with, Dr. Patrick, who also works out of Lions Gym with me. He's an independent contractor. He came on maybe 6 months ago. Anyways, not a runner, but he has been helping me a bit. Dr. Patrick, I know you just started listening to this podcast. Anyways, I was in the gym yesterday and he says, I listened to your podcast for the first time. He listened to the Derek Rubis episode from last week and then our previous training Tuesday, which was about us talking about our own, me trying to figure out marathon training. Anyways, he said, listen to your podcast, listen to 2 episodes. And I found it very endearing because he doesn't run. Mm-hmm. And he said, I find Brakken far more interesting. To me. And he was
I'm the most boring man compared to you.
Straight faced. And I was like a little hurt, but I didn't like give him that sort of satisfaction. I said, really? I said, why is that? And he said, because he's got so many injuries. I get to work it out in my head.
Okay. I was trying to think. We talked about our race schedule and goals, which I had almost none. And then we had Derek Rubis. Nothing I did was interesting, but now it makes sense. It's because I have something wrong with me.
I think we talked about it in that previous training Tuesday, and then my heart hurt a little bit less. But anyways, Dr. Patrick, we got a new listener. Thank you. He's also been helping me a good bit. Although, then we'll get into your topic today because this is your idea. You know what's interesting about this Achilles issue I've been dealing with? Is it's been progressing. It's there still, but if it was at a 9 out of 10, it's now at like a 2 or a 3, and I can work through it. I can do a single leg calf raise and hop on my toes, which I couldn't even do a single leg calf raise at its worst. Anyways, things have been progressing, and then I went and ran at Afton on the trails this weekend. I did like a 2-ish hour long run, which I haven't gone that far in a while either. But point being, you want to know what pissed it off? It fired it right back up. Downhills. Uphill, okay. Flat, okay. And every downhill, it got worse and worse. And then
What kind of downhills?
Douche grade to 30%, depending on the portion. But
downhills did it
notably worse going downhill. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
Anyways, I just didn't expect that. And I was like, of all things to fire it back up, for sure going downhill. Any ideas?
I mean, I'm no medical mind, but my first thought is, then is it the Achilles?
Right, and that's been Dr. Patrick's thoughts as well.
Okay.
Saying it's most likely insertion of a ligament on the outside. It kind of comes down into the same area. Yeah, good deductive reasoning there.
Look at that. It's going to turn out to be your Achilles. I'm going to look like an idiot, and he's going to find me even more interesting.
You already look like an idiot. But we both do. All right.
Well, I'm glad to hear it's down to a 2. I'm not happy to hear that one of the 2 things that are your goals for the year flared up.
Ran 200s and spikes to finish a track workout yesterday, and it held up.
Oh,
So
tell
I
me
think I'll be
about
all right.
that. Is
That's
this
it.
your first time doing that?
Yeah.
That first time back to 200s is well, I don't even know what to equate it to, but that's like us returning to something that was a staple of our life in college.
And you have to work
Yeah.
so hard for pacing now.
It is like if I ever want to encapsulate the feeling of what does efficiency feel like as a runner, because it's hard to really describe what running efficiency is. It's the lack of it is going out and trying to run fast 200s when you haven't in a while.
Feels like you have to fight for every stride. I feel like is how it felt. At least it
Yeah.
feels like you can't open up and be fluid. You can't relax while doing it, I think is the way to
Yeah.
describe it. Where you used to be able to, it might be an oxymoron, but relax while running 200 meters hard.
Yeah.
It's not possible anymore.
And you have to think about every portion of every stride to try to even run quick and run not like a goofball while doing this. It's a very humbling experience.
Yeah, and the first one or two feels real clunky. Like, oh, I felt that hard, and my time is
Right.
that. But then it opens up. It sort of has probably been
And
your
then it leaves
experience.
quickly, your first session.
Uh huh.
Like I run one time, I think, okay, that's starting to be quick. And by the next one, I'm tying up.
It's about how it went. I want to make one recommendation on shoes based on my experimenting, and
Okay.
then the floor is going to be yours because I know you got some things you want to suss out,
Yeah.
and I think people can learn from it. It's actually probably most listeners can learn from the topic today. But I did 4 by a mile. I wasn't feeling great yesterday. I don't know why. I had a hard time breathing, but so a little downgraded session. It was a 4 by a mile, 4 by a quarter, 4 by 200, like a very sort of vanilla little bit of a ladder. Like get the miles out of the way and the fours and twos will come easy, right? So to speak.
Yeah, I suppose.
So I haven't been running my alphas much, but I ran the miles in the alphas. And then I said, let's give these streak flies another chance.
Hmm.
And I ran the 400s on the track and the streak flies, the Nike streak flies. Still hate them. I think the streak flies are the lightest weight recovery run shoe that exists. I think it's a great shoe if you just want to put something light on your feet that molds right to it and to run like easy-ish to maybe moderate. But if you want to run fast, it sucks. There's no energy return. You agree?
It is the worst named and promoted shoe I have ever seen in my life. It was it's listed as a mile through 5K or 10K racing shoe in interval training, and it is nothing of the sort.
It's a
Like
lightweight
calling a
daily
minivan
trainer.
a track racing car.
That's
It's just
about the comparative.
yeah,
Great.
yeah.
If you're light on foot, you're a lighter runner and you want to use this as like a lightweight trainer or something, like I could it's got a lot of cush for its weight.
I love running at 6 to 10% on my treadmill easy in that shoe.
It's my treadmill recovery shoe now is what
Yeah.
I'm going to deduct it to. Yeah. So it serves a purpose, but not as it's labeled, as you said.
Ugh.
But I went from that. So that shoe's definitely dead to me for anything of quality. I've confirmed that. That thing, I'd rather burn it than wear it again for a quality session. I
I'd
had one or
rather
two
run
Christmas.
barefoot. I'd rather run in ultras than the streak fly for a quality session, I
Oh,
think.
you went there.
Yep.
And then the last thing is I put on the Cello Fly X by Hoka for the 200s. You need to get that shoe for
Oh,
these
yeah?
road. You need to upgrade from your shoe to it's by comparison, I think it gave me as much back as the stupid Alpha. And after wearing the Streak Fly, which is just a disaster, this thing was lighter, bouncier, amazing. So I wanted to get at you have some track miles coming up. That shoe, I think, leads the way for even up to a 5K on the track. I don't think there's a question. I think you would love it.
Okay.
Fly X.
You don't have to
Okay.
twist my arm.
You should get it.
Yeah.
I think you'd love it. And there's plenty underfoot. I bet you it feels like there's more underfoot than your Hoka spike you have currently.
Probably, yeah.
Like their LD or something, right? You just have their
MD actually, which is why I almost didn't get it until I saw it in person. MD spikes are usually platformed up front and they don't work for my stride. This is like a cross country racer and they called it MD. And I think it's why it didn't sell. Why you can get them for $50.
All right. Well,
It's
I'm going
weird.
to push you towards this one because I think you'll fall in love with it because
All
I
right.
did.
I'm in.
Hard to, yeah, hard to make you buy another pair of shoes. All right, what are we talking about today? Unless you have anything else you want to chat out
No,
there.
let's dive right in. 10 minutes in, dive right in.
Great.
Well, oftentimes it's hard for us to say our best topics, but what we feel like are some of our best conversations, or that at least get home to a lot of the listeners, are conversations that we keep hearing a version of this question from athletes. And then we talk about it. And it turns out a lot of people are thinking this. And one thing I've been seeing in coaching consults and in just questions with the athletes that I work with is that not everyone, people that listen to podcasts and people who are trying to advance their training, who are serious about this, have used their resources so wisely that they now know too much for their practical purposes, if that makes sense.
Hmm.
Like they're aware of so many topics in running that it starts to almost become paralysis by analysis. Like people are afraid of compromising the perfect training at the expense of just doing what they want to do and trusting that work is work. And that's come up several times recently, and I want to address that today.
Yeah, I just had a consult call yesterday with somebody with the paralysis by analysis because there's so much input from
Yeah.
so many ways and there's so many best methods. And I want to take this piece from this person and this piece from what I saw on the internet. And yet I want to race four different things that are all somewhat different. And you end up with information overload and
Yeah.
ultimately a compromised version of your training and potentially not seeing your potential in anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or equally bad, consistent, really good training, but inability to pull the trigger on a race that you want to do because
Mm.
the race compromises your progression towards the fitness goal. And I think that that is a really logical thing to do because we preach don't race too much and all of that. But if the race compromises the big goal, then you stop doing the race. And the actual big goal is to love running. Like almost none of us have a big end game from running that changes our life, other than the act of running itself. And
Mhm.
the act of running, like the pinnacle of that for many people is racing, and racing the thing you love and want to race and are excited by. And if you start turning away from that in order to not compromise the training goal, then you're kind of getting the worst of both worlds without realizing it until it's too late. So the idea of passing up on something you want because it might not be best practice is really the concept here.
May I ask, you said it was sort of a selfish topic when we decided
Yes.
before we hit the record button, like what we're doing today. You said, I have a selfish topic. And I said, great, because the last episode was sort of selfish on my end.
Yeah.
So give and take in this relationship. Why is it top of mind? Why is this top of mind for you right now?
So this will be unsurprising to anyone. A little bit of like a rambling get to answer that question, but I was at a bonfire this weekend. Uh,
Okay.
a close friend of mine lost his son a week ago, and it's rocked everyone's world around here. His son was 7 years old and just an awesome child. And this is a guy that's been on our podcast before. Like, this is someone that is intertwined with a lot of people's lives, and it's been really hard for everyone. Yesterday, I was gone all day
Mm.
because we were at the wake and funeral. It's just bad. But one of the bright sides of this is that it also does bring people together. And so Saturday night, we were out at his property around the fire, and there were like 17 or 18 guys that haven't all seen each other in a while, and we just talked. And
Mm.
at one point towards the end of the night, I was talking with a guy I haven't seen in years, and the last time I saw him, I was still training for Spartan Race full time. And so he came up to talk about that and was surprised that I'm not racing anymore. And in the conversation, I was surprised that I'm not racing anymore.
Uh,
And it hit me throughout this, explaining to him why I'm not racing, that I have paralysis by something as well. That, like, we talked about last year, I started one race and finished one race. And the year before was something like three. And in this conversation, we talked about how I've stopped He asked, well, like, why don't you anymore? I was like, well, I don't need to anymore, really. Like, racing doesn't bring anything to my family anymore. My kids have started doing their own things. The coaching, the podcasting fills my cup, as does helping my children with their sports. And that's enough. And it was all true. But I also realized that I'm also avoiding doing the thing I really love doing, which is just running fast. I just like,
Mhm.
training. I love exercising. I don't. But because I'm not signing up for races, I'm not truly training anymore. And we've talked about here for years that I don't love exercising. I'm not like you. I'm not like Lisa, where I need to get out the door each day just for keeping me balanced. No, I need to get out the door so that I can run fast because I want to race fast. And I've stopped signing up for things because I know I don't get to the start line healthy. And then I chase certain things and then either don't see it through or don't make it or whatever it is. And I think I'm enacting a version of what some of these athletes are talking about, which is I'm so overcome with how the process should look that I don't just take the process that could happen and just do these things that excite me. Like I'm constantly watching these race videos when I'm on the treadmill. I'm always making this curated bucket list of races I want to do, but I don't sign up for any of them because I either don't have the proper time to build for it perfectly, or I'm worried about what the perfect training would do. Or if I go after this, then I won't be able to do that. And then during this conversation, it was just like, yeah, but I'm not doing any of those anyway. Like, who
Mhm.
cares if an ultra compromises my mile or high rocks would compromise my, or whatever it is, because I haven't done any of those things. It's been so long that like my running career is like legally non-existent anymore. So why am I so bound up by it's not the proper build or I didn't go to the start line anyway, but now I also haven't got the life and physical benefit of training hard after something. So it's top of mind for me just coming off this weekend. And I had a long drive and a lot of sad thoughts in my head. And it was pleasing and helpful to just think about running for a bit. And so I decided on my course of action for the year. And it was a course of action that is, I don't care if it's right. This is what excites me. So that combined with the most recent consult I did just is like, all right, let's talk about this for other people, but just also so I can just like state my goal, do the thing, and stop worrying about should this work out properly.
Mhm. All right, there's a lot to unpack here.
Please do. That was a long ramble.
Um, that wasn't a ramble at all. I was engaged. I was hanging on every word. First of all, I know the gentleman you're speaking of and their child. I want to say I'm very sorry, and I hope everybody is doing okay. Um, a very tough situation, but I can understand how that would make anybody be introspective on what is going on with their own life.
Mhm. It reminds that
100%.
nothing's given.
Um,
And so
well,
why
that's for
put
sure.
things off?
And nothing is fair,
No, not at all.
right? Um, okay, so a few things that I kept wanting to interject with, but I didn't.
Okay. Please do now.
Yeah. Well. First of all, not like I want to make justify maybe how you're in the position you're in, because I could do that as well till I'm blue in the face, right? And
Mhm.
you could too if you wanted to. Um, when you're young and free and full of piss and vinegar, racing, especially the type of racing you want to do, feels doesn't feel. I don't want to say the word inconvenient, but the more complex your career gets and your family life gets, like the more inconvenient servicing your own desires on the racing front becomes. Correct?
Yeah.
So that you have to really want it and you have to really commit to it and you have to really choose selfishness at times and you have not. So there is that side of things. When you're a 20 something and you're single or married without kids or whatever it is, or even 30 something, it's a different lens you look at things through. It's not as
Mhm.
selfish because it's not a cost to anybody else but yourself.
Mhm.
But when it is right, so there's an inconvenience factor to this all. And I don't care. That's probably sounds like a bad word, but racing, especially travel and racing, becomes an inconvenience to the day to day life. I think there's part of that going on. Back when you were chasing the Spartan scene and you were all over the place, how many kids did you have at the beginning of that?
One.
Okay. Well, you still had one, I suppose. Nah, didn't you start that just before, Braden?
I did my first one. Yeah. We were
Yeah.
married, but didn't have a child yet.
Okay. So, first of all, there is that. 2, when we started this podcast back in 2020, we were largely speaking to the OCR over-raced crowd. Not only was it multiple race weekends in close succession, it was multiple race weekends with multiple races within those weekends, and people were raced to death and underperforming and basically a shell of themselves by mid-season. So we promoted the don't race too much if you want to see the peak of your fitness, right? Like, and we stand by that. But I would argue, and I fall in the same camp as you do. If I think about how many races I did last year, what I do, 5, 6, not even maybe, right? Big ones, don't get me wrong, but not a ton. I think a large sector of the population could absolutely benefit from racing more, because racing, whether it's in your scope or not, propels fitness, puts you in the right mindset, and makes it less abrasive and less fearful. And racing, when you race infrequently, is scary. It actually is scary. You're so far from having your foot in the flame, you forgot what even being in the fire is like. And that's scary to be like showing up and doing it again. So I think it all combines to this, like, I don't feel that fit. I have no real season progression or overarching goal. Nothing aligns with anything else. So why would I pursue any of them? I'm just going to go on my treadmill and do 6% intervals and I'll figure it out later.
Yeah.
Right. And so you're in that camp. And I very much have thought this the last few years with myself. We're like, who cares what race it is? If there was a mile down the street and I wanted to jump into that, do you think that'd make me a better marathoner ultimately? What do you think?
Yeah, I do.
From the outside, 100%. Same with you. Jumping in an ultra, even though it's 6 weeks before a mile, do you think somehow that may still make you better? Probably. Even that's about as backwards as it gets.
Yeah.
Anyways, so I can see how you're where you're at, and you're in the camp of like Church Day 5K right now.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
So those are my first thoughts. I had one more, but that's enough for now.
Okay. So dispelling all the pieces to, like will it compromise my build? Well, there hasn't been a build, so that doesn't matter. And do these races pair nicely together? Well, in my opinion, when you're not a professional runner, almost anything you work on is going to help anything else. So that doesn't have to be a thing. And then if all I care about is certain types of races and running fast, then let's just do that. And just what excites me on the calendar. And I have very few free weekends due to kids' sports. So finding the races that match the weekends and just saying, I'm going to do this thing no matter what. And so that's what it is. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the next 4 months and do nothing but try to run the fastest mile I can run while building the engine needed for a fall ultra.
Okay, I like that. So
That's
far, I
it.
like the sound of that.
And then pivot from as soon as the final race is first week of July. So there's first week of June, middle of June, first week of July, 3 mile races that I'm going to sign up for. One of them is on a race weekend, but I think I can make it work. And instead of it needing to be perfect, just show up and do it. Like we've talked about, still the fastest mile I've run since college was after a day of roofing. Like, why do I have to think it needs to be, I might be on my feet all day. Who cares? Just do it. So those 3 mile races. And then from there, pivot to the reverse of it. Prepare for the best possible technical vert-based mountain trail ultra I can, while keeping in touch with the speed that I built up for the mile. And
When
along the
is
way, try to run my 5K PR.
when is that first mile race again?
June, like teens.
So you still have 12 to 14
3
weeks.
months, yeah.
Okay.
Maybe an extra week in there.
And then in quotes, you'll have a racing season with these miles.
One every
Really.
2 weeks, roughly.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think 3 is a good number to shoot for, because that third one, you're gonna be quite in touch with the event, I would hope.
And you probably won't want a fourth.
If you do it right, you probably won't.
Yeah.
That's a good point. So I guess the first thing to ask is, okay, great. That's a fantastic. I love the plan, like 10,000 foot view plan. We still have 3 months.
Yep.
So does competing before Juneteenth or whatever that day is, is that going to then make your first, second, and third mile better? Let's talk about making those miles better first
Right.
versus
That's the next question.
making the miles help you be, let's say, better at and build to an ultra. So
Yeah.
my next question is then, instead of sitting in queue until June, obviously with purposeful training, what can we do, you do, to potentially set yourself up a little better? What else could there be before then is what I'm getting at.
Well, first, the talk of minimum effective dose of mile training that was my plan needs to move up one notch of aggressiveness.
Okay.
It still needs to be the plan, but rather than slow play it as long as possible, it now needs to be progressive as safely as possible. Kind
Agreed.
of sounds like the same thing, but it's not.
Yeah, it means maybe more frequent exposure, or it means additional reps or two,
Yep.
or literally the difference could be the choice of footwear you put on your feet, being
Yeah.
conservative or aggressive. Yeah.
Yep. Rather than trying to do the least amount of reps and get a stimulus, trying to do like the most medium amount of reps I can do without drawback,
Yeah.
something like that. Rather than sticking to 8, try to add a rep each week.
Yeah.
Or like you said, throwing a spike on for the last 3 reps or the first 3 reps or something like that. The second thing is, and it's tricky because there will be a lot of karting weekends in there, but finding something, anything to race prior to that.
Mhm.
And I think that any distance will help because what I'm finding is that as I fatigue in workouts, I'm getting hamstring insertion fatigue and pain. Not bad pain, but I tweaked it one time in college. It was there for like 3 years straight, but it's the thing that pops up whenever I really go to the well. That's an area that is still weaker than whatever's happening around there. And now at this point, I don't have to go to the well to fatigue that. So it's the first
Um,
thing. So any sort of racing that recruits everything and gets my muscles really taxed and having to hold my form together when I'm tired, I think is beneficial.
Regardless of terrain, is that your case? If it were
I
trails or flat controlled?
It needs to be more consistent strides, but if I get tired enough or go long enough, it still pops up, yeah.
Uh,
That holding my form together when I'm tired, that's where it settles in.
just from a pure run standpoint, if I said, Bracken, you have to race this event this weekend,
Mhm.
other than the mile, okay, the mile's off the table because that's already on the calendar. What would scare you the most? Anything from half marathon down, trailer road. If I was like, hey, guess what? You're racing Saturday and this is it. What would be like, oh, shoot, I'm dreading that the most?
Scariest would be a 2 mile or a 5K because that's probably as far as I could go while working very hard the whole time, knowing that it would be really bad. Anything past that 10K half marathon would be bad, but from a structural standpoint, like I don't have I can't tolerate all of this. I'm gonna have to go out slow to even have a chance of finishing strong. So it wouldn't be as bad. It would just be depressing. But a 2 mile or a 3 mile ish race I could work hard enough to really, really be miserable and I wouldn't be that fast. And so it'd be doubly depressing.
I figured you'd say that because actually, right now, I would say the same thing. I
Yeah.
think people who haven't been in the space a long time would say, "Oh my god, well, the most scary would be the longest, so the half marathon, and the next scariest would be the 10 mile, and then the next would be a 10K, and
Yeah.
the closer to zero you get, the more approachable it is." But I feel like once you know too much, it's the inverse. I feel
Yep.
like it's the inverse.
You
There's
just go
no
slower in the other ones.
right. There's no moments of comfortability in the shorter races, right?
Yeah.
Working your way into it. So what I think would make sense is a tapered tiered system, which would be like if there is a St. Patrick's Day 10K or there's a whatever it is,
Mhm.
but starting longer and just treating it as like a workout. Like I'm going to plan to go 80% today. And you all know what happens when you do that is you trick yourself into working pretty hard, kicking home, having a beautifully successful session. But maybe instead of using the term racing, and I'm starting to think this way with some of these road races coming up myself, like the Getting Geared 10K, for example, is local. I'm going to treat this as a 6 mile tempo session plus one and see where it gets me. Right? Is
Mhm.
there any ability to do that down there for
Of
you?
course.
Like take your Saturday or whatever it is and turn it into that.
Yep. Yeah, that's always available.
It's hard to find. I mean, you can find a 5K anywhere. 10K is a little bit more frequent, but it's hard to find the plus distances. Like if you could go hit a 10-mile race in quotes, oh, it would
Mhm.
be so beautiful, and then ratchet down.
Yeah. 10
Um,
miles too long for me to race right now. It would be like a 6 mile sub threshold run and then 4 mile hard cut down. Like
Correct.
I
Yeah.
just couldn't. There's not a line I could ride for 10 miles. Something would give out too early. So, but I think 10K would be about as long as would be effective for me in terms of a high end output.
Yeah, but how productive is a 6-mile threshold run with a 4-mile
Super.
crank down? Yeah.
Super. Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, that's where my mind first goes. Obviously, who knows with your schedule and race
Yeah.
options, but I would actually not like dig into the 2-mile 5K. I would like shoot longer and make it feel approachable.
Yeah. And so the idea here would be to work on the speed and pace of running a mile pacer faster, but work on the engine of what's coming next, which is the ultra, which is only going to benefit the mile. And that allows me to really polarize, which is just go run easy and smooth on the trails and run hills and such, but then like run kind of aggressive on the road or the track or the treadmill and get used to that output and build some efficiency there. And for you or I, or most people that aren't high school or college track athletes, the very like the quickest way we can get better at running a fast mile isn't through engine building. It's through all the other pieces that would make us just better at running that stride. Like, our strides have slowed a little bit. Our ground contact time, especially because with super shoes where we do a lot of our quality, has slowed. The ability to just hit off the track for 1,609 meters is not super strong right now. And so the speed work, the bounding work, the plyometric work, the drill work that really can take like take hold in your body and improve you can happen in like a week or two.
Hmm.
And that's the stuff I'll have to do if I actually want to run as fast as I want to run. That's the type of stuff that will make me better at an ultra. Refining my stride, getting lighter on my feet, becoming more efficient at fast running is only going to benefit my fall technical ultra running skills.
I very much agree with all of that. So then I think the natural progression of conversation would have me ask and curious about like, what are you trying to suss out your schedule, which it sounds like you've already kind of figured that out, or now are you trying to what are you trying to dissect here? I guess like if we're going to narrow it down to like a very like straightforward thing, what are we trying to figure out?
Well, it's almost like I don't want to figure anything else out. I want to shut my mind off to
Mm,
the little thing on your shoulder saying, "Yeah, but what about? But what?" Like, no, forget that. Work on the mechanics of my stride. Work on the plyometrics. Work on the speed and ability to run mile pacer faster smoothly and just get more and more asleep at that effort and spend time on feet on the trails and the incline treadmill. And don't worry about the things that, well, yeah, but you haven't done any blank or you're not like,
uh,
forget that. I don't need to worry about that because all of these pieces I'm working on right now are going to make me a better runner for whatever comes next. Like my issue is I know too much about running to feel comfortable leaving pieces out that are best practice. And I don't need to follow best practice. All the work I'm doing right now is going to allow me to do better practice later, but it's not me missing out on a certain type of stimulus is not going to change my year. And it's not going to change me as a person, but it's going to help me do the next goal I want to do. And so just totally trust falling and say, this is what I'm doing. And don't worry about what others are doing or what I could be doing. Just do it fully for once. Like as an adult, I was still a kid when I was pursuing Spartan, even if I wasn't like of adult age because I wasn't
mhm.
living a normal life. As an adult, I haven't just done the thing. So just do it. Put the blinders on and do it and just rest easy in that approach. That's like the real message for myself and anyone who's paralysis by analysis right now.
Is it that simple?
It can be because we're not pro runners.
Yeah.
Where so if I'm wrong, where's the drawback for what comes next?
Considering your last few years, nothing.
Right. But like
Yeah.
for a warrior, what am I leaving on the table? Like what are the actual consequences of not doing everything that you could be doing as a runner?
I mean, it depends what lens you look at it through, but leaving time on the table, injury or overuse injury potentially.
Yeah.
Yeah, not seeing your true potential in any one thing, the things we've talked about before.
Yeah.
But that's small potatoes.
Yeah. Yeah. We build some of these molehills into mountains about what are we leaving on the table. And we're partially responsible for that. We try to talk best practice every day. It doesn't always matter because we're not pro athletes. So since we always talk about racing down anyway from fitness, I think that kind of mitigates some of the risk of doing too much of something because I'm not going to be doing too much mile work. I'm still going to be trying to build a staying power engine. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to focus on a mile for 3+ months, which sounds weird as a 37-year-old. I'll be 38 by the time I race. That's a weird thing to focus on for 3 months, but I want to go run fast. And then after that, I want to find an incredibly technical, challenging ultra and race it. And if along the way, High Rocks finally just sinks its teeth into me, then I pivot to that. But for now, it's mile and then between 30 and 50 mile. And along the way, try to run a 5K PR.
I think both roads, if you focused on the mile or you focus on the ultra, I think both roads might lead to a 5K PR. It's funny, you could look at it from, you could attack it from
Yeah.
either way potentially with the right fillers in the mix. Do you have any, just out of curiosity as a friend, ultras in mind that you're looking at in the fall?
I have several that I'd like to do, and none of them align with the schedule.
Uh,
So because I've been introspective about this, I've realized like the type of terrain that really calls to me. I'm not going to mess around on any other type of terrain. I just want to run the type of terrain that I enjoy and that my skill set would be most suited for. Because at the
undulating
end of the day,
technical.
technical, I don't care about like it can have bad weather, it can be brutal. I don't care if it's altitude or not, really. But I want it to be technical, and I don't want to be doing the same stride for more than like 10 minutes ever.
And when Brakken says technical, I've run with you plenty of times. He means technical, not like there's a few turns and ruts. Like you're tiptoeing and dancing around crap constantly.
Yeah. Yeah, and I
Is as
understand.
awful of a trail as you can imagine running on. That's what you prefer.
Yeah. Yeah, and I
I've
understand
seen
that
you move your feet down in a
why I
place.
wanna do that, and it's because it slows down the pure runners and it rewards other skill sets, and I'm okay with that. I wanna go do the thing I can be successful at. So if they offer it, I'm gonna choose it, but as a result, they're harder to pinpoint and find one on a weekend that works for me, but
Might have to go to the
either
East
way.
Coast.
Yeah, yeah, East Coast think East
Yeah,
Coast trails.
yeah.
That's that's what I need. So, I think it is important, though, to do the mile before the ultra. I've run a good mile off an ultra in the past, but that was coming off of OCR not too long prior. I truly do believe my stride has worsened to the point where it needs a refreshing period of work, and I think the mile is perfect for it. Mile pace has always been my best stride. 800's a little fast for me because I'm not a like I never broke 50 in a 400, which for an 800 runner at the college level is kind of slow-footed, like
Mm.
speed-wise. It just all things being equal to be run like I ran a pretty fast 800 for how slow my 400 was. And I ran a pretty slow 5K for how fast my 800 or mile was. So like the mile was kind of my sweet spot of just stride. It's my best version of my stride. And so I think more work at that will help refresh all my other strides. So I think it's important to do this first, focus on plyometrics and drills for a while, and then be able to just contact the ground and get off it better as the volume rises post mile.
So if I were listening to this, as like an audience member,
Mm-hmm.
I'd say, okay, I get it. I get where you're at.
Yeah.
I get it. I get the how you're looking at the flow of your season, the why behind I need to just pick and pursue and jump in like I'm on board. I would want to know because I assume our listeners are quite detail oriented. Um, like what does it let's bring us to late May.
Okay.
What does a week in the training life as specifically as possible? Let's say we're 2, 3 weeks out from your first mile. what does a training week look like? What do you envision in this? Like, walk me through for simple to keep it simple, like a Monday through Sunday or whatever you want.
Mhm.
Like, what would it look like in your grand design? Specifically, what those sessions might look like if things progress the way you would hope.
Well, from an injury prevention standpoint and from a sustainability standpoint, I don't plan this is I'm open to change as it goes. But I don't plan on ever doing more than one full workout per week, specifically targeting the mile. So I
Okay.
might do little doses of it, my drill work and plyo work and like mechanical speed work on other days. But my plan is to keep somewhere around threshold work in one time per week, all the way up until probably like maybe even all the way through. But I will have one day per week where I'm running a true mile workout and a longish run. Like whatever a long run for an ultra would look like, I'm going to be doing like 80% of that, 80 to
Mm.
85%. So it'll still be one, and one threshold workout, mile workout, ultra terrain long run. And I'm going to do that all the way up. And what I'm going to modulate going into the first one is how much work I'm doing on that 1 mile work per week.
Okay. So that's what I want to know more specifically.
Yeah.
What session, if you were to just envision it right now and say
Right.
your foot, what would that session look like specifically?
So I'll talk about the progression I intend on doing for the weeks leading up to it. So that threshold workout will start with the longest type of intervals I can still consider thresholdish, like 3 to 4 by 10 minutes, 5 to 6 by 6 minutes, alternating between those. And as I get closer to race day, they will move down to more like 3 minute intervals at a faster pace, still
Hmm.
in the threshold realm, but that'll progress slightly that way. But the mile stuff is starting with these 150 to 200 meter reps to establish skill work now. And once I can just tolerate that stress, then it's going to move into 200s, and then I'm going to do 400s and 200 workouts. And then, like we talked about, some of these 1,000 meters at race pace, rest, 4x2, things like that. So I think the bread and butter work is going to be around 400 meter reps. But as I get closer, I will do probably 2 to 3 of those sessions where I'm running mile pace for 800 meters or longer. And so I don't have the exact session, but it might be like 800 meters at mile pace, 5 minute recovery, 4x4 at mile pace.
And then some 150s on the fly to finish.
Maybe these might not be huge sessions.
Um,
Since I have 3 mile races, 2 of them are going to be my big sessions.
okay, that makes sense. And would you err on the side of more rest in these sessions because you on your threshold
Absolutely.
days?
Yep.
So you could hit 400-meter repeats with 2 minutes rest, 3 minutes rest, even between some of these things, if it's what is required to run
Early on,
clean.
I might go 400 meters at faster than mile pace, 400 meter slow jog. Like it could
Okay.
be as much as that. It could be, yeah, 2 to 3 minutes rest. I'd
Hmm.
be very much okay with that. Since the first half of this first build is going to be skill and structure based.
Okay. And then you'll offset that with some threshold, short rest,
Yep.
targeted zone or pace that's more comfortable, we'll call it, but still work. And then go maybe even hit the trails for a 2 hour long run.
Yeah. The day after the mile work will be trail work. So it's going to be slightly fatigued and just run over the terrain I want to run on in a race potentially. At least every other weekend on terrain.
Okay. I like it.
And maybe 4 weeks out, 2 months from now, that this changes how I move into this final one. But I also don't want to make this like super high pressure. I want to go into the first one feeling fit and healthy and interested to see how it goes. I can always stress between the second and the thirds, but sometimes when you do too much sharpening in prep, it becomes too important. And this shouldn't be yet.
Hmm. I'd want to be comfortable for like 600 meters. If
Yeah.
I could race a mile and be in quotes comfortable, I think I'm reaching pretty hard by a half mile if I'm actually nailing my mile at this stage of the game anyways,
Yeah.
meaning like my age and I don't race it often. I'd want to be comfortable, like truly comfortable through 600. If I can get to 600 feeling efficient and not fighting for it, but if I come through the half mile being like, oh boy, it's going to be a long 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes, that's
Yeah.
probably the sweet spot. What do you think?
I think so. I think by 600, you know if it's going well or not.
Yeah.
If you're getting the signs before that, it's going to be rough. An interesting thing for me is that I've done this. I've talked about this. I've done this off OCR training. I've done this off ultra training, and my legs do okay. The thing that goes early on me, the discomfort and like the strange fatigue, has been my arms in these miles. And the only time it didn't was during ultra training. OCR training still didn't have my arms efficient for running mile pace, which is weird because I was using my arms so much. And I don't know why the ultra training mile, my arms didn't feel it, but I was feeling like truly like that lactate burn in
Hmm.
my arms 1,000 meters into the mile,
Hmm.
sometimes 600. So yeah, I'd like whatever efficiency is happening where I'm more relaxed up top and still able to run the pace. You need to get almost 2 laps done before that starts to weigh on you.
It's funny when I ran it was a break. I would consider a breakthrough 1500 for myself at the time, and I ran 354, and I won the race. I don't know, it was my freshman or sophomore year. It doesn't matter. And I remember what was sore on me the next day, and I worked pretty hard, and I kicked home, and it was two places. It was my hamstrings, and my shoulders were sore to the touch.
Yeah.
My shoulders from pumping so hard.
Tension in there.
My dad has that race. He came and used the old 8 millimeter or whatever it was, the high 8 to record my races. I got a
Yeah.
bunch of them. That's on video. But anyways, my shoulders went on me, my arms, just so interesting. Sore for days.
Yeah.
So
And
anyways,
then, so like, I think any good goal requires specific times to go with it. And I was just looking, the indoor masters USATF championships happened this past weekend, and looking at some of these things, it made
is
me
that
put
down in
some,
Atlanta?
I don't remember where it was. It was probably Atlanta. Let's see.
How come I'm so blue today, Bracken? You see how I'm so what?
It looks like you're in front of a blue screen.
I don't understand. I look like a ghost today. I'm washed out.
I'm not finding it right now.
All right. Well, whatever. I get it.
Doesn't
So,
matter. Anyway, so I have some time goals for this one. The first one I'd like to run right around 4:30.
yeah.
The second one I'd like to run mid 4:20s, and by the third one I want to try to run 4:20, as close to 4:20 flat as possible.
So fast.
It sounds crazy fast to me right now.
Mm-hmm. It is
But
fast.
2 years ago I ran 4:32.
Yeah.
With 0 strides in training spent faster than 5-minute pace.
432 is fast.
4:30, and that was shockingly fast to me at the time. And I was poisoned for the rest of the day. I was as brutalized by that race as any race I've ever run. Truly, it was so bad. But this is a good distance for me because I can get all of my fitness out of me in this. For whatever reason, like the mile, I can just feel the pace correctly almost every single time, and I can time everything well, and I can get all my fitness out, which is part of why I like this distance. I'm not guessing. It works for me. So if 4:32 happened 2 years ago, I'm 2 years older, but I'm going to have better preparation. So I still think opening up right around 4:30 is a realistic goal. But yeah, I'd like my post collegiate PR is 4:20.12 in the mile, and I'd like to get down to that by July.
I think it's very challenging, but reasonable. It's a reach, which it should be.
Yeah.
Heaven forbid you end up doing this and you run 4:24.
If I run 4:29, this is a success.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, I was just running 70s down to 68s yesterday, and that pace, granted, it was in the terrible streak fly, which I still,
Yep.
but it felt like I was moving, like to draw that out, even a 68, and I was running 68 point, not 68 flat, which would be 4:32. I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Granted, I had 4 miles of reps in my legs and whatever, but like, that's not a gimme. That's what I'm saying.
It's
That's
weird.
work.
Middle distance racing is weird like last December, like a year and 2 months ago, I ran 2:03 in an 800, which I was a little disappointed at. But after that race, I went out and ran 30.5 for a 200 just to feel what it felt. And I was like, this is super fast.
So fast.
Like I can't string four of these together, but I had just done that without doing any prep for it. So there's something about a middle distance race that adrenaline, nerves, anxiety, and the pack gets you through the first lap or two.
And just sell your soul to whoever's going to buy it, and just whatever. It's an all-in feeling, and you go past this point of like discomfort isn't the word to describe it.
No,
It is
it's
tunnel
poison.
vision. It's poison, I think is correct. Okay.
But
So
just to be clear, anyone who tries running a middle distance pace in practice without training for it, it feels totally unsustainable, inaccessible. But if you do it in a race, it's just easier. So I understand what 68s would feel like for me right now, and it would have no bearing on what I could do in a mile.
Well, I was doing a little self-projecting running 68 to 70. I was like, oh, I don't know what I could do for a mile, but I don't think it'd be pretty right now. All right. So let's we got like 10 minutes ish at most. Let's turn this to our audience then. So what are the teachable takeaways?
I think the single most important thing is we're not pro athletes. And so even though we strive for perfection, we've said this before, don't let the perfect get in the way of the good. Like a perfect plan that doesn't serve you is not better than a good plan that you love. And so best practice is not necessary for happiness and good performance, because your goals may not align with best practice, but you're not a pro runner who needs to streamline their whole year towards a pinnacle goal. If that's what you want to do, do it. But don't be shackled by the concept of, I must do this the way that is best in theory. If you have something that excites you or that draws you, and it's not in line with something else that exists, that's okay. I think that's takeaway number one.
To peel that back just a little more, I would ask myself then, like, well, okay, so how does that impact my training decisions? Okay, we're talking about what races you're going to pursue that may not align with the other races you're pursuing. But then you still have to like decide, like, okay, so like, for example, somebody out there might be like, you know what, I just need a track session every week, and they need to be 400s or 200s because that's what makes me feel good. But they're literally running 2-hour trail races. You could say, okay, like that's your big session of the week. Like, does that make sense for your actual pursuits? I guess trying to draw the line between like how now talk to me about how I should choose my workouts that matter.
Well, no, it can't be your big session of the week, but it can bump up into another session without impacting it. If you need to run 4s and 2s each week for 2-hour trail runs, well, do it. And then go for 10 miles afterwards.
Right.
Or the next. I mean, if you look at historically, like Matt Carpenter is the first ultra runner I've ever heard of who did this. And he ran 400s at 5K pace or faster every week in his training. And he owned every record in Colorado for 2 hours and longer. And now we look at currently David Roche is doing 5K work all the time, training for 100-mile races. Now, it's not the pinnacle of his week, and he might be adding on threshold work afterwards and then a PM incline session, which is how you make it fit in with your training. But simply doing the thing doesn't compromise your other thing, as long as it doesn't take away from your training time spent towards your purposeful work towards your goal race. So one time per week of just about anything other than a really, really long run will not take away from anything else. If you're a mile runner who wants to run 3 hours every weekend, yeah, that's going to take away. But if you want to run 3 hours every weekend, but you want to sneak in a mile workout in the middle of the week, you can do that.
It's funny because you're kind of saying you just made an argument maybe against your pseudo plan to run the mile, which was an 80% long run of ultra training, for example.
Well, which is why I'm capping it at like 80 to 85.
Oh, that's where you're going to 85% or minutes?
85% of what a duration would be.
Well, 85% of 3 hours is still quite a long run.
It's true, but I don't go past 2.5 very often in ultra training.
So you might do a lot of 90-minute stuff.
A ton of 90-minute to 120-minute work. Once to twice a week, 75 minutes plus is laying the groundwork for what I need to do next. But I don't go past 2.5 hours unless I'm in ultra phase. And even then it's like once a month. So I almost don't even count that right now. That's like my ultra speed work. It's race specific. This is
Yeah,
mile speed work. It's race specific.
basically build yourself up while you're mile training, so that once mile training finishes, that you can be prepared to go jump into what is actually needed for the ultra
Yeah.
without starting from square one,
Yep.
because you've limited your long runs to 8 miles and whatever else to run a fast mile.
Right.
Yeah.
And then I think takeaway number 2 is that if you decide to do something like this, you have to stop listening to other logic. Too many people are Strava watching. Too many people are listening to Instagram reels and being like, I know I decided that this was the route I was going to take, but I keep hearing how important it is to do blank work each week. Or
Mm-hmm.
my buddy who's also training for the same fall race as I am, he's not doing mile work and I'm going to, so I understand that. But he's been doing this quality hill session that I can't fit in with my current train. You just got to turn it off. If you decide to train for happiness, you have to keep that as your North Star. As long as you've already decided that your plan is functionally sound, you got to put the blinders on and just say, I'm going to see it through, because I'm going to have these things chirping in my ear 7 weeks in. As soon as I start to feel fit, I'm going to be thinking, all right, I should start adding in a lot of downhill work because I'm going to need that later. And I'm going
Mm-hmm.
to have to remind myself that no, blinders on. Blinders on. We don't need that yet. The things I'm doing now will help me later. The hard pounding the track now will help my downhills later. If I get more structurally stable getting off the ground at 4:30 pace, I'm going to be more structurally stable running downhill at 5-minute pace or 5:30 pace. You just have to trust that blinders on is okay sometimes as an athlete.
I would struggle with, I think we all have volume or mileage attachments,
Yep.
and true mile training. I would struggle, like if I were to pivot, even when I like make a hard pivot to 5K training and I see my overall relative effort on Strava go down, my weekly mileage go down, the need to still just get in the mileage somehow, throwing in trash volume. Do you think you could fall victim to that? Because for me, if I were literally, okay, take a session you just talked about, I'm going to do 800 meters at mile pace or faster,
Mm-hmm.
take 5 minutes rest, do 4 by a quarter, and finish with some twos. Congratulations, you just did 2 miles of work at most.
Yep.
Okay, with a warm up and cool down of traditional duration, at best you're at 6 miles for the day.
Yeah.
Whereas in half training, I might be at 14 plus for a quality day plus warm up and cool down. I would have a hard time with that.
Yeah.
Eh, eh, You have to push it aside, but would you have a hard time with that?
No, because I'm going to structure it differently. That's going to happen the day before my long run. My threshold sessions can still be my 10 to 13 mile sessions. Not yet, but they'll build up to that.
Mm-hmm.
And that mile session also, this is where you take the David Roche approach or a pro runner approach, which is now I double, or I get
Yep.
home from that and I just grind on the treadmill for 40 minutes. That will not negate any of the work I just did. It's not going to seep some of that down out the side. That's not a thing, but it's going to now keep me ultra ready, which
Mm-hmm.
I'm super depleted. Now let's go run aerobic threshold uphill for 40 minutes. Like, great. So I
Perfect.
truly believe I'd still run my best mile off of roughly the same mileage per week I'd run my best 50K. I still do believe that.
Okay. It's a good way to jig the system. And when I was threading the needle or aiming to on the 5K, Friday quality, run Saturday on tired legs, but you can get
Yeah.
your volume in, it balances itself out. I will say a lot of times those long runs can end up being kind of a grind depending on how much you
Yeah.
thrash yourself the day before. It's like from step one, you're like, this is going to be a long 90 minutes to 2 hours, and not
Yeah.
any step is going to feel good. But that's sort of the point. That's good. That's really purposeful ultra training,
Yeah.
the fatigued long run. So you can chalk it up as that.
So just brief template. Monday threshold work, as much volume as I can get in. Tuesday, easy and probably lifting. Wednesday is midweek long run with speed sprinkles and drill work and mechanics. So I get more volume there. Thursday, easy and lifting. Friday, mile paced work with some sort of uphill finisher. And then Saturday, easy long run.
Mhm.
So there's still plenty of room in there to build volume up. And there's still one day where I'm getting high volume quality work on my threshold day. And then the mile work is kind of sandwiched in between the volume and the volume.
Makes sense. Although easy long run, um, if if the body's beat up enough, it could be the heart rate may look nice and chill on the graph,
Yeah.
but like the legs may be pretty damaged, so it might feel arduous, even though metabolically it doesn't look that way, right?
Yeah.
That's how I feel about those sometimes. It's like, yeah, on paper it looked like you didn't work very hard, and I didn't metabolically, but every step my legs were
Yeah.
just fatigued. So it's that whole song and dance.
So I did 2
Um,
hours 2 weekends ago after doing 8 by 150.
mm,
And it was okay. And in theory, if I keep progressing the mile work sustainably, it won't be so much more demanding until the last like 3 weeks. At which point I'll probably cut the long run back slightly, but it's also a good time for me to remember to practice fueling so that I'm not arriving back to Monday or Friday ever behind the 8 ball calorically or with too much residual fatigue in my body.
yeah, and just I would say like just reminding yourself that even after these mile pursuits wrap up in, you said end of July.
Beginning of
Roughly.
July. Yeah.
Beginning of July, what do you I mean, you have 3 months minimum probably until you're on an ultra start line, so, like,
Yeah.
you've got the time, you'll have the foundation. Eh, less might
Yeah.
be more when it
And then the
comes to that.
mile speed gets replaced by downhill speed.
Yeah.
And then you're ready, hopefully. So this was a selfish episode. I wanted to talk through my things, but I really hope it's a good reminder to people that have gone from I love doing this thing, now I'm excited to get better. Now I've learned a lot of things, and now I don't find myself doing the thing I love as much anymore because it might be at odds with what I've learned.
Mhm. Yeah. There you are. I think a lot of people fall into that boat.
It's the progression through things. We learn a lot, and then we struggle to simplify it back down to what's best for us.
Mhm. Yeah, the more you know, uh, the less simple and the more complex it always becomes. I feel
Mhm.
like clean slate, like you've been running for a year or two, you've been progressing, but you've just been progressing on exposure to anything. And then you start getting into the weeds, and then you get a decade in the weeds. And then how many decades into the weeds are you now?
Yeah.
And then you've got all these things rattling around in that big old smart brain of yours, and you're like, now what? The
Now
heck
what?
do I do? I just put on my running shoes and run. I'm do.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think that'll be it for today then. And I guess we have you for our episode later this week. So
I'll be back
good.
Thursday.
Woo. All right. Anything else we got to wrap on?
No, I don't think so. I think that's good. I think now I have to go shopping for super spikes.
You need to buy this super spike. That's what you need to do.
Okay. I'm in.
All right.
Sold.
We'll talk to you guys later this week.
See you.